What's up everybody, welcome back. So time for part 3 in our turret series, and today I want to take a look at setting up the turret projectile and also make sure that we can damage and destroy the turret. As a little reminder, this is currently only set up as a single player, and later in the series we're going to make it multiplayer replicated. So that's just so I can show better what the difference is between the multiplayer replication and the normal setup. So a reminder there. And the last thing I want to say, if you're interested in the project files, keep an eye on the Discord. As soon as the series is done, I will upload the project files on there. So let's dive into today's video. So first of all, let's take a look at setting up the projectile. So we want to create a new actor for that. So let's create a new blueprint class, an actor. And this is going to be my blueprint, GDR turret projectile. And let's open it up immediately so we can set it up. First of all, let's take care of the components. So we want to make sure that the root component is the actual collision. So first of all, let's add the collision. I'm going to add a sphere collision, and replace the root with the actual sphere. So I'm gonna make it 12 in radius, and for now we can set the collision to just block everything. So we're gonna set the collision preset over here to block all dynamic. And that's the actual collision. So we want to add some FX we can play. So we're gonna add a particle system, and that's a cascade particle system component. So we can add it attached to the sphere. And then over here, we want to make sure that we set the location over here to -40. And I'm going to scale it down to 0.4 on all three axes. And we want to set up the actual particle system. So that's going to be the turret projectile. So let's have a look in here. Sentry turret projectile, this one. And there we go. So this is our projectile. And now all we need to do is add some projectile movement. So let's add another component and look for projectile movement. And we want to set this one up as well. So for the initial speed, I'm going to set it to 7500, and the maximum speed as well. So you can play around with it. You can make it a bit faster or slower, whatever you prefer. And I'm gonna make sure that I set the gravity scale over here to 0, so it's not going to be affected by gravity. And that's pretty much all I want to do in here. So we can compile it. And if we go to the event graph, we can set up that part as well. So this is going to be pretty simple. Let's get rid of all of this stuff. So we're going to select the projectile movement component, and then we want to get the event on projectile stop. So this will occur as soon as it stops moving when it hits something. And then first of all, we can spawn the actual explosion FX. So let's drag over here and spawn an emitter at location. And we want to spawn it at the current location of the projectile. So we can simply get the actor location and plug that in over here. And for the rotation, that's not really too important. We can just leave that to 0. And then we want to set up the actual projectile. So let me double check. That's going to be sentry turret beam character impact. So let's look for beam character. Sentry turret beam character impact, this one. So this is not a looping FX, so we don't need to store it as a variable. It will simply stop playing when it's done. And now for the damage dealing part, we can drag off the hit result and break it over here. Oh, so that was not the correct one. Let me try again. Break hit result, there we go. And we can use the built-in damage system. So we have apply radial damage with fall off. And that's pretty much what you want to do for an explosion. So let's take that one. Radial damage with fall off. And we can simply set it up over here. First of all, let's get the origin. And that's the actual location of the hit result. So plug that one in. And then you can set up some damage stuff. So for now, I'm just going to use hard-coded values. You can put them in a data asset or a data table, whatever you prefer. So let's make this something like a 20 and then 14 for the minimum damage. And then you can play around with the radius values as well, obviously. So the inner radius something like 100 and outer radius 250 maybe. And then the damage fall off, let's set that to 1. There we go. So for the damage causer, we actually want to drag off here and drag self in. So that will tie the projectile as the damage causer. And that's really all we need to do in here. After this, we want to destroy the actor, so we destroy the actual projectile. So destroy actor self. So that's the entire graph we need for the projectile, so we can compile and save it. That's already good to go. And if we go into our turret blueprint, then we need to make sure we fire the projectile at the correct moment. So we want to use the notify events that we added. And in this case, we want to use the notify turret fire. That's over here. And currently we're only spawning the muzzle flash FX. And we're going to make sure that we also spawn our projectile in there. So let me quickly switch my nodes in here. So that's not too difficult. We're going to spawn an actor from class. So let's drag off here first and spawn actor from class. So we can spawn our projectile blueprint. So look for the turret projectile that we just created. And then for the actual spawn transform, we can get our turret mesh. And for the starting point, we want to get the socket location of our muzzle. So let's get the socket location. And we want to get it from our muzzle. So let's check out our skeleton over here. That's over here, socket muzzle _1. So let's copy this name. And let's paste it over here. So that's the starting position. And we want to fire at our current target location. So we can drag off here and we can use the unit direction vector. And we can specify a start and an end point, and then this will return the direction vector from start to end. So we can use that to plug in our spawn transform. So over here we want to grab our animation blueprint values and our current target location. And now we can simply make a transform out of here. So let's drag off here and make a transform. So the starting location is going to be the socket location of the muzzle. And then from this unit direction vector, we want to get the rotation from an X vector. So if we drag on here, it actually grabs the correct node. So simply use that one and it will convert it to a rotator, and that should be good to go. So the turret will, the projectile will destroy itself, so we don't need to worry about storing that and deleting that. That should handle everything right now. So that should actually be the projectile done already, so we can have a quick test and then move on to the damaging stuff. So currently, if we try this, we have a collision issue. So it doesn't look like it's actually firing, although it is. So that's because our turret projectile over here is set to object type world dynamic. And if we go to our turret, our mesh is actually blocking the world dynamic channel. So let's just change it for now. So we're going to go to the turret mesh and then change this to custom. And for world dynamic, we're going to set it to ignore. Compile it, and now we should be good to go. And it actually fires the projectiles, so that's working. That's nice. So now let's move on to the damaging stuff. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like and drop a comment down below if you know what movie inspired me to make this little clip. First of all, let's make sure that our turret actually has a health variable. So let's create a new one and let's call it health. And that's going to be a float. Then we want to add a function that will take care of the damage probably. So let's tackle that one first. Let's create a new function and call this take damage. So I'm going to give it 3 inputs over here. The first one is the actual damage amount. So the damage, and that's a float again. And then I also want to add a location and a rotation that we can use to play some impact effects. So location, and that's a vector, and then the rotation as well. First, what we're going to do in here is grab a branch, and I want to check if the actual shield of the turret is open or not. And depending on that, I want to play a different impact effects. And also, if the shield is closed, I'm going to do less damage. So, is shield open? First of all, let's spawn an emitter. So, spawn emitter at location. Over here. The emitter that we want to spawn, let me double check. That's our sentry turret shielded impact. So let's look for shielded impact. And we actually want to use the lower one over here. So not beam shielded impact, but sentry turret shielded impact. Then for the location, grab it from the function input and the rotation as well. And that will be converted for us. So we scaled down the mesh, so let's scale down this a little bit as well. I'm going to set this one to 0.8 for all three axes. And that should be okay. So let's do the same thing if our shield is actually closed. So over here also spawn FX, but this time we're going to spawn the shielded beam FX. So shielded, and select the upper one, sentry turret beam shielded impact. So the location and rotation are the same, so we can simply plug those in. And the scale is the same as well, so that's good to go. Then let's take care of our health. So first of all, when the shield is open, so we're going to do the normal damage over here. Let's grab a setter for our health and also a getter. And we're simply going to subtract the damage over here. So subtract. And grab the damage from the function input over here. So that's the result for the health, and let's copy it and move it down here. And what I want to do in here is divide the damage by 3. So if the shield is closed, we're only going to do 1/3 of the normal damage. So let's drag off the input over here and divide it. So we can divide it by 3 or 2 or whatever you like. And then plug it over here into the subtract node, and that will take care of the health. Then at this point we want to play a hit reaction animation. So we have 2 variables for that. First of all, we want to grab the hit react animation variation, so we can have a little bit of variation in the different animations. And we're simply going to grab a random one off here. So let's do a random integer in range. And there are actually 3 variations, so we can choose from 0, 1, and 2. So -0, maximum 2, and that's good to go. Then we want to grab our play hit react animation boolean and set this to true. And as soon as we set it to true, this will start playing, and it will keep playing until we set it to false. So what we want to do at this point is add a tiny bit of a delay and then set it back to false. And we're going to do that in a second function, because this is a, well, we're going to do that in an event, because this is a function and a function can't have latent nodes. So we can't add a delay in here. So we're going to set it to true over here. This will make the animation start playing. And then we also have our float in here that says the turret damage value, and we also want to update this one. And what this one does in the animation blueprint is actually play an additive animation where the turret looks broken, and it will go from 0 to 1. 0 means there's no damage and 1 means the turret is completely destroyed. So what we can do over here is grab our current health value and simply divide that through 100. So that will give us the correct value that we can plug in here. If we do 1 minus, so we want to grab 1 and subtract this value from it. So that way, if we have 60 health, then we have the damage value set at 40. If that makes any sense. So we're gonna grab a minus node over here. And then we want to move this to the lower pin. So we want to do 1 minus the health divided by 100. And that's our damage value. So after we set the damage value over here, this will make the damage animation play that makes the turret look broken. And we also want to play some damage FX probably. So that's what we're going to set up next. And we're going to do that one in an event. So let's go to the event graph. And over here, let's create a new custom event. And let's call this one a visual damage effects. Like so. And we want to use our turret damage value, for example, to determine what we're going to do in here. So first of all, let's grab a branch and we're going to check our turret damage value. So if this is greater than or equal to 1, then our turret is actually about to be destroyed. It's gone, it's dead. So let's do greater than or equal than 1, plug it in here. If this is true, we want to destroy the turret. So we're going to create another event for that later. If this is false, we're going to check this again. So let's copy and paste it over here, plug it into the false pin. If it's not greater than or equal to 1, maybe it's greater than or equal to 0.66, for example. And if that's the case, we're going to play some damage FX. So we want to create the actual emitter as a variable. Well, let's do a spawn emitter and we're going to promote it. So let's do spawn emitter attached. And over here, the actual emitter that we're going to use is sentry turret damage underscore 2. So let's look for sentry damage. Obviously not. So sentry. Let's look for damage. Not. Oh, they actually, okay, so let's look for DMG. There we go. So we want to play the sentry turret DMG underscore 2 over here. So we have two variations. We're going to attach it to our mesh component. So plug that in over here. And we actually have a socket we need to attach it to. So we can go to our mesh again. And over here we have the destroy stage sockets. So for this one, let's grab underscore 2. Let's copy the name. And let's paste it in here. So then we can use the snap to target keep world scale for the location type over here, and that's set up. So now we can drag off here and promote this to a variable. So this is our damage state fx underscore 2. There we go. And now over here, first we want to check if this is already valid or not. So let's drag in the actual getter and do an is valid check. So if this is true, plug it in over here. If the fx is not valid, we're gonna spawn it like so. And that's good to go for now. So we want to do this a second time. So let's grab this part, copy it and paste it down here. So if the damage value is not greater than 0.66, then we're going to check if it's greater than 0.33 maybe. And if that's the case, we're going to spawn our damage state 1 fx, so the first variation. So what we want to do is grab this part again, paste it over here. So that's the not valid pin. We're going to spawn an emitter attached. This time we want to spawn the other variation, so underscore 1. And we also want to attach it to the underscore 1 socket name. So let's change that one over here to the attach point name. Then we can promote it to a variable. So that's our damage state fx underscore 1. And with that setup, we can grab the getter over here and plug it into the is valid node. So we don't keep spawning it. We only want to spawn that once. And now that we have that one set up, we want to go back to the part where we spawn damage of x2. And if we spawn this one, we're going to remove the first one. So we're going to grab the damage state 1 over here. Check if this is valid. Make sure we plug in both of the execution pins over here. There we go. And if this one is valid, we're going to destroy it. So drag off here and destroy component. And that's good to go as well. So those are the damage state fx. And as I mentioned, we want to reset our play hit react boolean. And we're going to call this event after we take damage. So we can do that in here. And we pretty much want to do that at the end of every branch. Let's just create a separate event. That's a little bit cleaner. Yeah, let's just do that. So we're going to create a custom event over here, and let's call that reset hit react. Ooh, hit react. Oh, really? Animation. And all we're going to do in here is add a delay of 0.2 seconds, and then simply grab our play hit react animation boolean and set it back to false. So the animation will play once, and when it stops playing, this will be set back to false. So it's not going to loop. So inside of the take damage event, we want to call both of those events. So reset our hit react animation, and also play the visual damage fx. So visual damage fx. So add those two calls to the take damage function, and that's good to go as well. So now we need an event to actually destroy the turret. So let's create that one as well. Let's create another custom event over here and call this destroy turret. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that every FX that might be playing is going to be destroyed. So let's grab the FXs and let's check if those are valid. So is valid, and it doesn't really matter which one you grab first. I'm starting with the damage state 1. So if this is valid, we're going to destroy the component. So drag off here again and destroy component, like so. And we want to do that for all of the FXs. So let's copy and paste it again. And this time we're going to check our damage state 2. So replace the variable over here. And then we also want to check our exposed FX and our targeting beam FX. So copy and paste it again. Replace it with the exposed FX and copy and paste it one more time. And replace it with the targeting beam FX. So that will take care of all of the FXs that might be playing. Then we want to spawn the actual FX for destroying the turret. So we're going to spawn an emitter at location again. Spawn emitter at location. Let's hook up both of the pins over here. So the actual FX that we want to play is sentry turret explosion. So let's look for that one first. Explosion. So the lower one over here, P sentry turret explosion. Let's select that one. And we want to grab an actual socket location to spawn it. So let's grab our mesh in here and let's get a socket location. And we want to get it from our destroy stage FX. So if we go back over here, we're going to grab the FX destroy stage _1. If we attach it or not attach it, but spawn it over there, we should be good. So we're going to paste in the socket name. That's the actual location. And for the rotation, we're going to get the actor rotation of the entire actor and plug it in over here. So again, we want to scale it down a little bit. So I'm going to set it to 0.4. So it's the same scale as our third mesh. At this point, we want to grab our mesh component and our capsule component, and we want to destroy them already. So we don't have collision anymore and we don't see the actual mesh anymore. So let's plug those in over here into a destroy component node. And then we simply want to give it a little bit of time to play the FX. Although that should not even be needed, by the way. No, we didn't attach the FX, so we don't really need a delay in here. We can simply just destroy the actor and that will destroy the entire turret. And if we don't add a delay, then we also don't need this. So we can simply spawn the FX and destroy the turret, and that should actually be good to go. So now we want to go back to our visual damage FX event over here. And the first branch, if our turret damage is greater than or equal to 1, we're going to destroy the turret. So destroy turret. And that should be good as well. So I think we should be pretty much good to go. The only thing we need right now is a way to actually damage the turret. So otherwise we won't be able to test this. And I actually forgot one thing. We also want to set up the actual events that register the point and the radial damage and pass those on to our custom function. So let's do that first. Let's look for an empty spot over here. And we can look for the event damage. And then we have point damage and radial damage. So we want to use those ones. If we use event any damage, there's no hit structure included over here. So we don't know at what location the hit took place and things like that. So we don't really have enough information in here. So we're simply going to grab point damage and radial damage. So we have different ways to actually damage the turret. First of all, let's grab the point damage one. And we can simply call our take damage function over here. So plug that in. And I already see what I messed up. Okay, that doesn't matter. So event point damage, we can plug in our damage, we can plug in the hit location and the normal, and that should be all we need to do in here. Then we're going to look for damage again, so event damage, and this time do the radial damage. So again, we want to call our take damage function. We can plug in the damage over here, and this time we want to grab the hit info and break it. And from here we can get the location and rotation. So grab the impact point and the impact normal and plug those in. And what I actually, well, not really messed up, but could have done a bit smoother was add a delay over here of 0.2 seconds. And then over here we're going to simply set our play hit react animation boolean back to false. Like so, and then we don't need the other reset event. So that was something I came up with on the fly because I thought it was missing from my notes, but apparently I just skipped a step. So we can go to the reset hit react animation event, delete it, inside take damage, also delete the call. And that should be good because over here in the event graph, if we take damage, we can just hook it up over here. Okay, so compile and save, and now just make sure we set up a quick way to test it in the character and we should be good to go. So let's open our third person character. And in here I'm simply going to use a line trace and then apply point damage. So it doesn't really matter how we set this up in your own project. You can simply have your character apply point damage or radial damage, and then the turret will register that. So let's set up an event. If we click the left mouse button, so I'm not going to set up an input, I'm just going to grab the left mouse button over here. And then we want to do a line trace by channel. So the normal one, line trace by channel over here. First of all, the trace channel is going to be the camera trace, so make sure we change that over here. Then we can grab our follow camera and we're gonna get the actor world location. So get world location. Sorry, not actor because it's a component. This is the starting point of the trace, and then we're gonna get the forward vector. So we can drag off the camera again and get the forward vector and simply multiply this. So drag off the forward vector, do multiply. I'm gonna right click the lower pin and convert it to an integer, and then I'm gonna multiply it by 100,000 maybe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that should be good. And we want to add this to our starting location. So grab the world location again, do add, and add the multiplied forward vector, and that's our end location. And now we can, let's enable trace complex. I don't think we need it, to be honest, so that shouldn't be an issue. Now let's grab the out hit over here, break the hit result. And if we actually have a hit actor, we're gonna apply point damage. So let's drag off here and do apply point damage. And we can plug in the hit actor into the damaged actor. And I'm just gonna set a default value over here. That's not too important. The hit from direction, I'm not too sure what to plug in here, but let's plug in the location and that should be fine. And for the instigator, we can get our player controller if we want to. So let's get player controller and plug it in over here. So that should be pretty much it. The only thing right now is I'm going to go to the viewport and raise my follow camera. So otherwise I'm going to fire against my shoulder over here. So let's raise it 100 and I can actually look over my character. And I forgot to plug something in probably. We need to plug in the hit information, so we can grab the out hit and plug that into the hit info as well. And that should take care of it. So now we should be able to test it. So if we hit play, we already verified the turret is firing at us. So let's fire at the actual turret, and it's not, oh. So let's set the debug type over here to for duration, so we can actually see the trace. And it's kind of working, although it only took one shot. So base damage 15 over here. And let's have a look at the turret. So I did set up 100 health, I'm pretty sure. So health over here. Oh, default value 0. Okay. So we want to grab the turret health on the actual turret blueprint and make sure we add a default value of 100 or whatever you prefer. But if you do 100, the calculation for the actual damage value is correct. So now we can try again. And that looks a little bit better. So as you can see, the turret has his shield closed right now, and if we fire at him, we get a little shielded impact. And if we go closer and the shield is open, we actually get a different impact effects. So if we keep firing, there's some fire and smoke going on, and you can see it actually starts a bit to be a bit broken as well. So the actual additive animation is working. And if we keep firing, other FX will appear, and it will appear to be more broken until it blows up. So that should be good to go. We got all of that stuff already set up. That wasn't too bad. So we're getting close. In the next episode, we're actually gonna set up the replication, and then we should be close to finishing this. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon. Later, guys. Bye bye.